Hey, welcome back to class. Let's go ahead and bow in, trip, bow, kunye. And let's get started with our warm-up. Jumping jacks. Don't hold your breath here. Get those muscles moving. You might have noticed I now have a white belt on the wall. So we are now moving into the white belt material. The last few classes have all just been introductory. At this point, you would be ideally having a white belt, and we would be working towards our yellow belt. And so we're going to begin that material today. All right, let's go ahead and punch and switch. And sumo splits. Just going to bounce it around, moving from side to side. Use your forearms to keep those knees open and shift the weight. Turn the hips some. All right, I can push one hip forward and one back. Change the muscles that are being stretched here. This is warm up, so everything's kind of dynamic. Just kind of moving through these stretches, not holding them. You can hold it a little bit, but don't hold it for too long. All right, from here, what I want you to do is I want you to drop one knee down, and we're gonna come up, and we're gonna drop the other knee down. We're gonna turn and face one way, and we're gonna turn and face the other way. One way, and the other way. Now, if you can, this makes it a little bit more of an exercise, try to stay low, right, with your hips. So imagine you're in that sumo split position. You drop this down, boom, and then the other way. Now you can touch the knee to the ground. If you want to make it really hard, keep the knee right off of the ground as you do this. Should feel this in your quads. Good bit. All right, let's drop it down and hip stretch. Kneeling hip stretch to the other side. Bring it back, hamstring. Other side. And bring it up, shake it out. Okay, so like I had mentioned just a few minutes ago, do have a white belt on the wall now. We are going to be moving into the next level of material. So we have to learn the material before we can really work it. The first thing we're going to go over is going to be our stances. We're going to go over our forward stance. So now I'm going to show you how I do my forward stance, and then I'm going to show you the official way. So if you want to do it for, say, competition, you'll have to do your stances in a certain way. I don't do my stances quite that way. I was taught a little bit different, and honestly, I like my way better. Oh, what a surprise, it's my way. So I like it better. But it is gonna be a little bit different, but you are gonna be more stable. I find it more useful in actual movements and day-to-day life versus just for a competition. So forward stance, my forward stance looks like this, okay? The more official forward stance is here, right? Notice how narrow my feet are in line, right? The official one, I should have one of my own foot width in between, right? So if I went here, here, and then I can go back and turn my back foot out slightly, right? Personally, I don't like this. I feel relatively unstable in this side-to-side manner. When I was taught this, it was a wider stance, right? You should be able to have somebody kind of push you on the side and your upper body just kind of does this, but your lower body shouldn't move. If your feet are too narrow, when you do that, you would move your foot out, and I would tell you that's the placement of your feet, right? It should be like walking on train tracks, right? So I've got 2 tracks here, and I want to be on those train tracks, not super close and narrow. Again, personal preference. I don't like it, but if you are training for a Pumse competition, you're gonna need to do it that way, the more narrow way versus the more wide way. Okay? But I am only going to really be showing my version and practicing it my way versus the official way. Okay? So just be aware of that. So when we're doing this from a side view, this is what it looks like. I want my knee of my front leg over my ankle. Right? Notice how the angle of my ankle should be at 90 degrees. The angle of my knee, so from lower leg to upper leg right here, should be about 120 degrees. Chest is squared and chest is up. I'm not bladed off. I don't want bladed hips either. From the front, my belt is pointed directly to the front. I'm not here, right? I've done a little bit of karate stuff where the hips are orientated to the side like this, right, at that 45-degree angle. We're not doing that. We have our belt directly towards the front. Hips and shoulders are squared, shoulders up. Back leg is locked out, right, completely straight. My back toes are 30 to 45 degrees from the front. So from here, 30 to 45 degrees, pointed off to that side. I don't want them completely to the front. A lot of people can't even do this because it does require a lot more flexibility in your ankles and your calf muscles. So turn it out, it'll find it a little bit easier, but I do not want 90 degrees, so I don't want your toes pointed all the way that direction. I want them 45 to 30 degrees offset from that front, just like this. Okay, so let's go ahead, let's get into our forward stance. And now we're going to move from forward stance to forward stance. So for now, just go ahead and put your hands on your hips. Keep that knee bent. Don't go knee over toes, knee over ankle. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to keep our head at the same level. What I mean by level is this is a different level, right? You see how my head is kind of bobbing up and down? When I go from forward stance to forward stance, I don't wanna bob my head. I'm gonna keep my head at the same level. And I do that by pushing this knee over my toes, bending my knees here, keeping my head at that same level, and then stepping out, right? We're also going to be doing what's called a crescent step. So a crescent step is where the back leg or the front leg, depending on what direction you're moving, moves to the other leg, and then it comes out. Notice how I'm kind of doing a little semicircle. This is why it's called a crescent step, because it goes in and out. I'm not going in a straight line from one position right to the next. I'm bringing it in and then out, in and then out. If I step with the other one, same thing. Now, if I'm moving backwards, again, I have this locked out knee, I bend it, and I want to keep my head at that same height. Feet go together, feet go out, drop the heel down, and we should be in that forward stance. Okay? So let's go ahead and let's practice this. One more thing, when we get to the end, right, so I run out of space, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna step back and across with my back leg, and then I'm going to twist, just like this, going into my next forward stance. So we're gonna take a few steps, and then we're going to twist. Ready? Forward stance. Look at your stance, knee over your toes. Don't bend the knee too much, don't have it straight. Back leg locked out, feet are on your railroad tracks. Go and put your hands on your hips, and let's step forward. Don't let your head bob up and down, and then out. As I step out, I also have to pivot my back toes. They were facing the front. I have to turn them to the outside. Let's step again, and out. Now, from here, back leg is gonna go across. Same thing though, I don't wanna bob my head up and down, so I don't wanna come up. I bring this across, head stays at that same level. Look over the shoulder, twist. Back toes, 30 to 45 degrees offset. Back leg, completely locked out. Front knee bent. Knee over ankle. Toes pointed forward, the front foot. step through, back, pivot. Step through. Let's do 2 steps and then we'll pivot. Step through, pivot. Step through, pivot. 1, 2, pivot. 1, 2, pivot. In front. 1, 2, back foot over, pivot. 1, 2, back foot over, pivot. 1, 2, step across, pivot. 1, 2, step across, pivot. All right, so that was our forward stance. The next stance that we're gonna go to is going to be our walking stance. And in case you're wondering, a forward stance is called an apkubi, right? Apkubi in Korean. I don't use very much actual Korean terminology, but I will occasionally just kind of throw it out there so you know it if you hear it. But I'm American, and my grandmaster is from Jordan and not even from Korea, so we kind of just use more English terms rather than Korean terms. I know most of them, I just don't use them on a regular basis, so they don't really even slip out. But if you do ask me what they are, I can tell you what the majority of them are until you start getting to the really complicated stuff. But all the basics, pretty simple. Okay, so the next one is going to be a horse riding stance, Korean terminology, chuchimsagi. All right, so our riding stance. Now, again, I do this slightly different. All right, they changed it, so let me see if I can make sure I remember it. It's actually a lot closer now than what it used to be. I believe it's about 2 feet apart, like 2 imperial units, feet apart, knees bent, toes pointed towards the front. All right, relatively close stance. You see how close my legs are together compared to what you would normally think about at a horse riding stance would be this, kind of down here. I do something that's kind of in between the two. All right, so the official one is this much closer one, toes directly towards the front, right? And sometimes I think they'll go by either 2 feet of your own feet or 2, feet, 12 inches. Right? Either way, should be close-ish to the same. It's still this relatively closer, more narrow horseback riding stance, just like this. And we're not super deep into it, right? It's not this deep down squat position, right? That's not a horse stance. You wanna bend your knees to the point where if you were to jump up with power, that's what you would cock to, right? If I'm gonna jump with power, I'm bending my knees about this far, right? If I go down here, I'm not gonna have a powerful jump, right? My muscles are way too overstretched to really have a powerful jump. Anytime I load, boom, it'll be something like that versus down there where it's just a lot of squatting effort, right? So go to that natural feeling bend for you, and it's not a whole lot. We're not super down low in this, about here, right? Your quads shouldn't be killing you the whole time, right? Contrary to popular belief. We're here, toes down, here. Now I will do this a little bit wider, right? And then I have my toes slightly angled out because it feels bad on my knees when my feet are at least wider. I mean, if they're closer, it doesn't feel as bad, right? Which is one of the reasons why I think it's straight on and a little bit closer than it used to be. But I still will go a little bit further and I'll go down about this far. Keys here, make sure your chest is up, right? A lot of people will kind of do this. It means usually they have tight hip flexors, and it's kind of pulling them in. So you want to be able to sit into this stance. Again, my knees aren't super bent, not down here, right? Just to a comfortable bend where my muscles feel like they can hold it for a good amount of time, right? And this is going to be our horse stance. Our heels should be in line, right? So I'll go with the seam of the mats. Heels should be in line whenever you're doing this. Don't stagger it. And this isn't horse stance unless I'm angled slightly. From here from the side, chest up, head up. Okay. I will sometimes have you do a horseback riding stance though, that is down low, and that's just because I want to burn your quads. It's not actually a horseback riding stance, so just be aware of that. So, horseback riding stance, go ahead and go into this. We'll do a little bit more when we go over traditional punches, or in the next class we'll go and be in this stance a little bit more. You will do some stepping from horseback riding stance to horseback riding stance, but it's not super common, right? Sometimes we'll go here to here. Not a super common thing. You usually don't move very much from the horseback riding stance. It's more of a solid stance, and it's more of a training stance. You're not really going to use this to fight. There's not a whole lot of actual applications for this. It's more of the training and development stance rather than anything else, okay? So that was a horseback riding stance. The last one we're going to cover is going to be our walking stance, right? This is a apsagi. Now, walking stance, same thing. I like mine a little bit wider, right? Officially, there should be 1 foot width, your own foot width in between, and then you go back, and I believe it's a foot width in between as well. So distance here and here, right? So that's about what it would be for the official one. I go for more of a relaxed stance, right? My toes and my heels are actually a little bit closer together, right? Maybe not on the same line, but relatively close. To me, this should be a stance where if you're walking and you stop, that's your walking stance, right? Makes sense, it's a walking stance. So I don't care for, it has to be this specific thing here, it's gotta be this amount this way and this amount this way. That doesn't matter to me, okay? Everyone's a little bit different. Find out what's comfortable for you, right? And now when you're in this stance, I want you to have just the slightest bend of your knees, right? So right now, you can't hardly tell that my knees are bent, but they're not straight, right? This is locked out. I don't want your knees locked out. I want them slightly bent, but not fully locked out, right? They're basically straight, but they're not locked, right? Here's the difference. And it's hard to see when I'm wearing my dobok, but you can see the movement from when I bend my knees slightly to straightening them, right? So I have that slight bend, and then I like to have my toes about 30 degrees off, because when I'm walking, I don't know about you, but I don't walk with my toes directly towards the front. I walk with my toes slightly towards the outside. So when I'm stopped in here, I usually like to have my front toes directly towards the front, but my back toes will be about 30 degrees offset, just like that. Shoulders, hips, relatively squared. Shoulders are squared. Hips might be slightly canted, but not very much. You can see the knot in my belt is still basically towards the front. It might be like 5 to 10 degrees off, but not very much, right? Same thing here. And this is, again, our walking stance. Same thing with walking stance, right? I'm not bobbing up and down. It's harder to bob up and down with the walking stance though. Whenever I'm gonna turn, I will step back and pivot. Step, step, step back, ball of the foot, and pivot. All right, so this is our walking stance. Let's do a few steps here. It should feel like you're walking, right? Stop, back foot goes across, pivot. Step, 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 across, and pivot on the balls of the feet. Again, it should feel really natural. This should feel like you're walking, which is why it's called a walking stance. All right, I don't want to overly complicate it. I just don't want you to, I don't want to see you do this, right? These really long steps, or this, right? I see this sometimes with these really bent knees. I shouldn't be able to clearly tell how bent your knees are, right? It should be like this, right? Nobody walks like this in real life, right? So if you're stopped in a position, or we just did a punch, and your knees are like this, I don't know what you're doing. That's not a walking stance, right? Make it feel natural, as if you were walking and you just kind of stopped with 1 foot in front. I know we stop a lot of time with both feet next to each other, but if you stopped with 1 foot in front from walking, that's your walking stance. Got it? Cool. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do some kicks. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do our front kick. Now, from now on, you are going to be doing your front kick with the ball of the foot only, right? I know I showed the instep. you practice the instep enough already, right? The only targets for the instep are to the groin or the body or head of a bent over opponent. Even then, the ball of the foot is still probably a better weapon because it's a smaller surface area hitting the target, so it does more force into a smaller area, does more damage, okay? So ball of the foot, superior than that front snap kick where you're kicking with the top of the foot or the instep. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna start off and we're gonna do 2 sets of 10, practicing kicking with the ball of the foot. If you have a target, go ahead and kick your target. Make sure you're pulling your toes back so you hit with the ball of the foot. Don't push your toes in and jam your toes. It's not fun. Done it. Don't do it. Okay? Kick your target if you have it. If you don't have it, kick in the air. Ready? Get into a sparring stance or a fighting stance, and I will count them out. 1, 2, 3. Make sure to rotate a little bit. 4, 5. If from the last classes you had identified something wrong with your front kick, make sure you're still working on that now. 6, 7, right? We don't want to kick like that. 8, 9, 10. Switch sides, same thing. Make sure you exhale every time. 1, 2, 3. Maybe you noticed that I just stopped and stretched before I did another kick. If you have to do that, or you feel like you have to do that, do it. Don't wait for me to tell you to stretch. Stretch something if you feel like it's starting to pull. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, other side. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Other side. 1. Arms are up, nice and relaxed. 2, 3. Make sure as you're kicking, your ankle is extended. Don't flex your ankle. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Take a breath in and out. Okay, so the next thing that we're gonna do is going to be our axe kick. So I'm gonna have Bob help me demonstrate what an axe kick is. We did something similar to an axe kick in one of the previous classes. I called it a stretch kick, right? An axe kick is literally a kick that comes up and just goes straight down. Targets for an axe kick are the face or the clavicles, right? The shoulders, like the collarbone right here, right? To score in Taekwondo, you're gonna have to hit up here, right? An axe kick can be done a few different ways, but it's gotta come downwards. It's gotta come straight down, right? If we make contact going sideways, it is no longer an axe kick, it is a pressing kick, which is fine for Taekwondo sparring, but it's a different kick, so I want you to just be aware of that. A lot of time when I'm doing an axe kick, I wanna be at a distance where I can't reach him if my hip is over my feet and I raise my leg up straight. But if my hip goes in front of my base foot, I can hit them, right? And that's my goal and distance for an axe kick, because I wanna raise my leg up straight, but then as I push my hips forward, I wanna land on the way down. I don't wanna make contact on the way up, right? So I'm here, no contact on the way up, and I wanna hit on the way down. Now, ideally, I hit with my heel as I do this. Right, I'm gonna go here, right, I hit with my heel, not just with my toes, right? So if the clavicle was my target, I don't want to hit here. If the nose is my target, I want to hit, ideally, boom, with the heel first, not just the ball of the foot. Hitting with the ball of the foot will score in Taekwondo sparring. It just doesn't do as much damage, right? If you hit with the heel, you're gonna do more damage. Now, another key part in this is whenever you are kicking on the way down, you must extend your ankle, right? And yes, I know this is technically plantar flexion of the ankle. It's a flexion, not extension. I'm just going with extension. It's a lot easier to understand, right? So flexing the ankle, extending the ankle. You have to extend the ankle whenever you're kicking. If you don't, say if you have a flexed ankle, right, like this. Now, the connective tissue onto the heel, right, the Achilles tendon, where it connects to the heel, is what you would be making contact with if you have a flexed ankle. And let me tell you, that hurts. It does not feel good. I've done it. I've hit something very hard, and it doesn't feel good. Now, if you point the ankle, right, extend out the ankle, point your toes out, now you're bending this portion right here, and you'll be making contact with the heel. Right, see how the heel bone sticks out more when I'm here versus here? You want to make contact with that bone, not with the connective tissue. Connective tissue hurts, bone hurts less, okay? So just be aware of that. You want to point that toe. All right, we're gonna do 15 on each leg. Now, if you have something, if you're hitting something, make sure that you can hit it and ideally slide down or have it give a little bit. You don't want to hit something that isn't going to move, right? So if I hit his clavicle, I want to bring it down, and I'm going to set it there. I'm going to do it nice and controlled. I'm not going to bring it down as hard as I can and risk hyperextending my knee. I don't do that, right? Personally, I'm not a big fan of axe kicks for that reason. I have a bad knee. Not a fan of them. But you can still do this, right? With a person, an actual person, if you have enough momentum or forward momentum with your hips, right, it causes them to go backwards, right? Especially if they leaned back and you go here, you can collapse them down and they fall down. So that's something that you can do as well with this. If they're leaning forward, a lot of time you'll just hit their helmet and pull their helmet down in front of their face. That's fine too. But again, don't kick something hard that is not gonna move and not gonna allow your knee to be in a safe position. Right? That's why I like to kick on his nose, because his head just kind of does this and my foot will fall right off. All right, 15 each side. Ready? Begin. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I can also swerve out and then come down. 5. That is also an axe kick because it's going and impacting on the way down, not on the side. What is that? 6, I think. Or I can just go straight forward. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. A lot of times I just use axe kicks as a stretch kick. 12, 13, 14, 15. Other side. Ready? Begin. 1. Usually start off your first few just kind of using it as a stretch tune, just in case your hamstrings are a little tight. People pull their hamstrings on axe kicks way too often, which is another reason why I'm not a big fan of them, because they just swing their leg up really hard and they pull their hamstrings. Right? The first few should definitely be done as a stretch kick. Right? We're just kind of going, feeling that range of motion and coming back down, not trying to overly push it. 2, 3. Also, don't stomp the ground. I don't want you to go boom and hit the ground really hard. Don't do that. 4. The kick happens at this height. This is where the impact happens. Down there, it doesn't happen unless you're like axe stomping somebody. Don't do that. What am I on? 5? Maybe? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. If you can hear my foot hitting the ground, I'm not hitting it hard. I'm only hitting it with the ball of my foot. I'm not hitting it with my heel, so the impact isn't going through my knee. Is that 11? I think that was 11. We'll do 11 again, just in case. I talk a lot, I'm sorry. 11. 12. 13. 14. 15. Take a breath in, and out. Breathe in, and out. The next thing we're gonna do is gonna be our roundhouse kick. Now we're gonna do a full roundhouse kick. So for the past 12 classes, we've only done a half roundhouse kick, right? And we've done that so that we can really work on that pivoting and ideally having that proper body alignment. Now we're gonna do the full kick. So one of the things when people go from the half roundhouse kick to the full roundhouse kick that they do, that I want you to avoid doing, is they'll go and they'll do a full half roundhouse, a full half roundhouse. Then they'll extend out, bring it back, and kick, okay? The extension, this part right there, extension, happens as you're going to the target, right? So I'm not going to rotate, get my pivot, and then extend. Not what I want. I want you to start extending before you hit that target, right? When we get in line, the extension's already done, right? You're already done with the target whenever you're fully rotated. So just be aware of that. And then if you're kicking in the air, use this flexion to help you counter rotate. So I kick, boom, boom. And I want to bring it back. I still want to try to get 180 degrees as I pivot. The higher you want to kick with this kick, the more you need to pivot, okay? Just how it is. If you want to kick really high, you've got to get a high pivot. If you notice the people that can kick all the way up, like straight up to the sky, look at their bottom leg, and you'll notice that their toes are pointed all the way to the back, whether it's a side kick or a roundhouse kick, all the way to the back, because they're using their hamstrings, which have the ability to be more flexible than your hip adductors, right? The muscles here are not going to be able to be as flexible as your hamstrings. So just be aware of that. If you want to kick high, you have to rotate. All right, we're going to do 2 sets of 15 for our full roundhouse kicks. I want you to do, let's do the first set on each side in the air, and then if you have a target, we can kick the target. Ready? Sparring stance, boom, roundhouse. 1, 2, 3, 4, make sure you exhale, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, rotate on the ball of the foot, 14, 15, breathe in and out, switch your legs, same thing. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure you're fully extended by the time you get to that target. Even when we're kicking in the air, identify a target that you want to kick through. 5, 6, 7. Upper arms are up and relaxed. 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Take a breath in and out. Breathe in and out. All right, now for this next set, we're gonna be kicking a target, all right? So I got my 2 bags out here. If you have a bag, kick the bag. Ideally, you have something. I want you to be able to practice actually kicking something, right? You need to get some sort of bag, whether it's one of these or one of these. Either way, make sure you have a bag. You need to be able to kick things. All right, so this is specifically a Taekwondo roundhouse kick. So because of that, we are kicking with the top of the foot, right? That's gonna be our kicking surface area. I will show you other roundhouse kicks in the future. Today, we're going to only be doing the Taekwondo roundhouse kick. So with this, I want you to impact and then bring it back immediately after your impact. Whether I kick that one, boom, I kick this one, and I want to bring it back. So make contact, rechamber, bring it back behind you every time. Now we're going to do 15 more each side. Ready? Pick a target. I'm going to hit that target and again. Button. 2. Also, you might have noticed I have this tape here. That tape represents my belt. Right? It's at the same height as my belt. I have to kick above that. In Taekwondo, you're not allowed to kick below the belt. We will do leg kicks later on, but Taekwondo sparring, you're not allowed to kick below the belt. What was I on? Was that 1 or 2? We'll just go with this as 2. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. Make sure you rotate on the bottom foot. 9. Put your hips behind these kicks. 10. 11. If you have a bob, probably notice you gotta go over the shoulders, which is one thing I love about the bobs. You gotta clear the shoulders because it's like a real person. 12. 13, I don't want to accidentally clip the shoulder on the way to my head. Or I can angle off so that shoulder's out of the way. 14. Makes it easier. Work on that body angling. 15. All right, other leg, same thing. Ready? 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. 11. 12. 13. 14. 15. Take a breath in and out. Breathe in and out. Okay, the last of the new techniques we're going to learn today is going to be our middle block. So previously we've covered our low block and our high block. Now we're on to our middle block. Right? This is a mamtang anmaki. Looks like this. Okay, I'll show you from the side real quick as well. All right, that's the middle block. Right? Blocking middle section, middle block, right? Blocked lower. Now we're blocking to the middle, and we have blocked previously to the high section. So with the middle block, we're gonna start off with one arm out and the other arm back behind you, palm facing outwards. Now I like to put this right behind my ear with my elbow towards the back instead of my elbow towards the side. And I like to pull it all the way back when I'm doing this. Now, this one, I have a little bit of bend. I have seen people, they set up theirs like this. I don't really have a problem with it if you want to do that, if you've been taught that way. If you haven't been taught that way, then I want you to straighten it out, right? Still a little bit bent, but a lot straighter, then sure, okay. If you've been taught this way, you're welcome to keep practicing like that if you'd like. I was taught this way, so this is the way I'm gonna do it. Here, now, when you do this, you wanna bring the middle block out and around for the block. I have seen people where they kind of bring it more in this straight manner. Middle block needs to be ending with this kind of sideways direction, right? I'm hitting something to the side, something's coming at me, boom, I wanna hit it offline of me. So it has to have this more circular trajectory as we're doing this. All right. So we're gonna break it down just how we have previously. For the other blocks, we're gonna set up. This is gonna be 1. This is gonna be 2. Notice how at the last second, I still have that pivot. And then the alignment here, I want my pinky just past my center line, right? Here's my center line. My pinky's just past it. From the side, you can see my knocking knuckles are at the same height as my elbow, right? Or not my elbow, my shoulder, excuse me. I don't want it down here. I want it up here. And then I want my angle of my elbow just greater than 90 degrees, right? So here's about 90 degrees. I want it just greater than 90 degrees. And then I don't want my wrist bent back this way, nor do I want it, it's not even comfortable, overly bent back this way. I want my wrist nice and straight as I do this. So let's set up. 1, palm out, 2. Now I'm not really using hips right now. I'm just getting the upper body. 1, 2. As you can imagine, we can use our hips here. 1, 2. 1. Notice how my chest also gets pulled back. My right shoulder gets pulled back, so I'm not squared with my chest. 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Don't stop short of that center line. I don't want you here past that center line. 1, 2. Now you can work on hands are nice and relaxed. You can see through the binoculars. 2. And then tense up upon that block and then relax again. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Now what I want you to do, I want you to straighten the arm that just blocked and bring the other arm behind you. This is 3, 4. 3, 4. 3, 4. 3, 4. Straighten one, bring the other one back. Knuckles behind the ear, palm outwards. Bring it around, 4. 3, 4. 3, 4. 3, 4. 3, 4. Okay, now I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4. Ready? 1, 2. Straighten the arm, bring the one that was at the belt up to the ear. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fingertips, shoulder height. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Relax, tense. Relax, tense. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now I'm gonna count 1 and 2 only. So 1, 2. So I'm not gonna count for the setup. I want you to put the setup in there though. Ready? Set up and 1, 2, 3. Relax, tense. I started counting up. All right, we'll just count up, all right? That was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, other hand at the belt, 17, 18, 19, 20. And take a breath. Next time we're gonna work on adding our hips in there as well. All right, so I wanna quickly recap the things that we went over today. We learned some new stuff, so let's go over it. We learned our forward stance first. We also worked on walking from one step to the other, not bobbing the head up and down, using that crescent step, and then stepping back and pivoting to twist around as we do this. After that, we learned our horseback riding stance. So I showed you how I like to do it, and then I showed you the official way to do it. Horseback riding stance, the way I like to do it, the more official way of doing it. Then we went over our walking stance. Again, our walking stance should feel natural. It should be like you're walking, taking a step, and then you just kind of stop, right? I don't want to see this, because I see this every now and then with a whole lot of bent knees, right? Natural, feel natural with this. Your legs are straight, but they're not locked out, and I don't want you locking out your knees. After that, we went over our front kick. We've done this before. I'm making sure now we only kick with the ball of the foot. We're not gonna be kicking with the instep or the top of the foot anymore. Only time we would really be doing that would be the groin of an opponent. So we're kicking now with the ball of the foot, pointing our toes back as we do that kick. After that, we learned our axe kick, which was similar to our stretch kick. We wanna make sure that when we're doing this, we're kicking on the way down and that we are pointing our toes and ankle outward. That way we hit with the heel and not with the Achilles tendon. It's not fun to hit with that. After that, we went over our roundhouse kick. So we did our full roundhouse kick this time. And now I want you to make sure that as you're throwing this kick, you're extending as you're going for that pivot. I don't want you to go pivot all the way and then extend and retract and bring it back. I want that extension happening as you pivot, and then as you are retracting, use that to aid in your counter pivot. After we did that, we went and we learned our middle block. So we started with one arm out, straight in front of us. The other one has our elbow pointed towards the back. Palm is pointed outwards, a little bit behind our ear, and then we brought it around, nice, loose, and then tense up at the last second. Other hand is right there on our hip bone at the belt, with our knocking knuckles at our shoulder height and our pinky knuckle a little bit past our center line, not going short of that center line. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Now we're gonna go ahead and we're going to start cooling down. We're gonna do a little bit of stretches for more flexibility. So let's go ahead and let's start again with that sumo split. It's one of the ones that I really enjoy. It's a nice, easy way to open up your hips. Right? It's not as painful as the splits, but it still helps a good amount. But speaking of the splits, let's go do the splits. Hands down, out, slide down as much as you can. Try to have your toes pointed forward and up at about a 45-degree angle from the ground. If you need to do a little bit of bouncing here for comfort, you can do that. Once you're gonna get to the point where you can tell those muscles to start relaxing, and just feel that stretch, fall into that stretch. Take a few deep breaths here. Just try to get those strong knuckles. Sometimes I get lazy and I'll let my fingers go and just kind of go flat across my fingers instead of on those knuckles. And you know, it's okay, but if we can practice two things, Price of one as well. All right, let's go ahead and come up a little bit. We're going to put one arm over the other leg. Try to slide into there as much as we can. Once we get to that position, a few deep breaths. Work on relaxing. All right, now when you come up, I'm gonna see how my knee likes this side. This is the side that it's not a fan of. If it's okay with it, I'll stay in the splits. If not, I'll have to bend my knee. All right, it seems like it's doing all right today. I do have to have a little bit of more tension in it, holding my knee together than what I would prefer, but that's all right. Okay, I actually am gonna bend it. It's starting to give me a little bit of trouble, and that's fine. If you feel like you need to do the same, you're more than welcome to do so. Okay, now we're gonna come up. I'm going to bring my shoelaces of my back leg down, and I'm gonna work on this version of the splits. Again, this is the one that I don't practice very much, like at all, but this is a good stretch for the hamstrings of the front leg, and then the hip flexors of your back leg. Go to that other side. Toe pointed up, shoelaces down on the back leg, and slide into it as much as you can. Hold it. You can try to come upwards with the body. All right, if you do that, you usually get a little bit more of the hip flexor stretch on the back leg. If I lean forward, I get more of the hamstring stretch of the front leg. All right, let's go ahead, come down, and butterfly. Get a little blood flowing back into those hips. Right hand to the back, left foot plants, left hand protects the head, hip and right foot off the ground. Step up with the right foot, stand up. All right, now we're going to balance, grab our foot, and stretch our quads. Okay, let's drop that foot down. Grab the other one, same thing. All right, let's shake it out, do some modified hip twist. All right, cheer up, bow, kunye. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that class. If you did, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what you like the most, what you don't like, or anything that you're having trouble with. All right, other than that, hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next class.